Here's the editor of Plotlines.
This is like a little homecoming here. I feel like I know so many of the poets, and I'm just so moved to see all of you here. And I met some of you, 6 months ago online, emailing and reading your poems. And but just to meet you in person is it's just a highlight. I just can't tell you how moving it is. This has taken so long to do, and this is really the grand finale to actually meet all of you in person, and the audience to hear your poems read aloud. What could be more thrilling for a person who's retired? I came up with this idea. I wanted to do this book 2 years ago, and I started to discuss it with editors in Portland, and everybody told me I couldn't do it. They said, you got 2 strikes against you. You don't have a MFA or a PhD in literature, which is true. And the second thing they said, there's not a poet in their right mind who will submit to a journal because your journal is brand new. And why would anybody do that? So I didn't do it for a year. I just sat and did nothing. And I'm German, and I started to get angry about that. And I've never really listened to anybody all of my life. And I said last year, I can do this. I don't need to listen to these people. And this worked. This worked. And now editors all over the West Coast are calling me, from San Francisco, from Seattle, from Portland, asking me out for lunch and saying, this is one of the neatest journals on the West Coast. And the collection of voices. And they're saying the poets in here are incredible, and there is so many different voices in here. One editor a couple of weeks ago said he's never seen a journal that has had so many good poems of such different voices in it. And I said, that's right, that's what this is all about. So it really has worked. And I got to say, one person here, when I was putting this together, I didn't know what I was getting into, and had I known, I probably would not have done it, because it really is a lot of work. But it was a fun work. And a couple of times I just said to my wife, Bessie, what am I doing this for? We were in Mexico, and I was doing a lot of the editing there instead of enjoying the beach or this or that. I was working 8 hours a day editing. I got over 700 poems that were submitted with about 250 poets. And that was a lot of reading to go through 700 poems line by line and figure out which ones were going to be in here. And it got to be a lot of work, and my wife kept on saying, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Don't stop, you've come this far, you can do this. And Betsy, I just want to say thank you again. After 41 years, thank you. 40. And, yeah. She said it seems like 41.
Yeah.
So anyway, just thank all of you, and now that I've got a grip on myself, why don't we go ahead and start with the poems. And our first poet is Brigitte GOETZE from Monroe. And Brigitte is a biologist, an Angora goat farmer, a writer. She lives in the foothills of Oregon's Coast Mountains, where she spins her various yarns.
I would like to start with the poem that Toni put into the new fault lines. page 31, yes. The title is, What Doesn't Shock Us Anymore? How many women do you know? Think of those who are close, mother, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, cousins, wives, daughters, in-laws, neighbors, friends, acquaintances, classmates, roommates, playmates, colleagues, supervisors, employees. Count also those you approach while running errands. The checkers, tellers, waitresses, doctors, nurses, receptionists. Don't forget those you encounter in community events, at church or meets or benefits. Add those with a familiar face, TV anchors, actresses, royalty, reality show stars, athletes, dancers, singers, painters, politicians. Write them down. One line for each name. If it slipped your mind, a short description like the woman jogging each morning in Central Park. Take some time. When you're comfortable at the kitchen table or during break in the office, or even while commuting in the bus. Use your laptop or a pad. Whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the legwork. Next, the numbers game. Don't worry, it will be easy. Take a blood red marker and impartially highlight every fifth name. That's all. You're done. Now you see the face of each woman you know who has been raped. Statistical speaking, of course. My next poem is called What to Take. What do you take when you leave home for the first time? I claimed the antique copper teapot, deep-bellied, beautifully adorned with a blooming thistle, Art Nouveau style. It now sits in the stairwell window, connects me along the female line, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. Every time I ascend or descend, move between office and living room. Like an old woman, it shows its age, is tarnished, dented, scratched, and, crippled by a mangled handle, past pouring hot water. It could be refurbished and polished, but I decline the facelift, the Botox, the plugins, disclaim the notion of undiminished productivity, even for an old pot. To a friend. I must like the book you love in this robe after you exposed your sorrow. I must stand next to you no matter what. This is friendship, you insist. You may dislike the book I gifted you. My love embraces also otherness. Friends, like a seesaw, share a common center. Thank you.
The next reader is Quinton HALLETT. And Quinton's most recent chapbook is Refugee from Flux, Finishing Line Press, 2010. She chairs the Eugene Springfield chapter of the Oregon Poetry Association.
Thank you. Oh, Toni, it's so great to meet you. A man, a plan, a region, some pot of money somehow. This is really great, and I love being here with everybody. It's an extraordinary experience. I'll read Wind Chill Factor from the book first. Scuffed boot tips spike frozen puddles, crazed crystal platters on a backcountry rutted road. Into frost clouds puff accumulation from their long marriage of two sporadic combatants. One, believing himself innocent, pleads no parry this time. Truce. Let test and pathology conjoin. Eliminate the fraught weight. For the other, it's a question about intimacy of casual contacts, the way they can detect truth, like a cat who had strayed away for the cat loather. Snowfall, mounting its meter sticks all month, will wait past spring for the chance to melt away. For the couple on their daily hike, poking at puddle shards, green persistence will underpin the long road ahead. And I'm glad Jana's here, because if she hadn't been, I wanted to read her poem, so I hope she will read Who Are My Plums in a minute. My next poem, On the Verge. Hungover bee, or rather, a hornet hung over from summer in a hiking boot, comes to life. Dormant hornet, low-flying hornet, Lazarus hornet, hung over from summer, circles, weighty passage of elapsed time on its back. Does it want out, or has it dreamt enough chambered vocation to last another season? And this poem, some of you have heard before. Dreaming Meryl Streep. Like beached crabs, logging machines strand in a swale. Only the deaf hear the vital codes, long, short, safety, danger. A young woman up the road bleeds her spoiled mess into the family. Opal, the color of ague or rage. Meryl's strong voice inside the pillow. Sleep's glue binds the fragments. Her eloquent marquetry. What have we taught, and by teaching, entered a problem's throat?
Our next poet, Michael Henner. Michael's work has appeared in Tiger's Eye, Margie, Mudfish, Crab Creek Review, Cloud Bank, Nimrod, Gargoyle, and elsewhere.
Hi there, thanks for coming. Thanks, Toni. I wasn't going to read the poem I had in Faultline because it looks better on the page than it sounds, so I'm going to try. Aquamarine. Once, perhaps it was difficult not to be cynical, as difficult as a potato. Here, let me explain. It was Thursday, any Thursday. The next day, Christ is to be crucified. The rain has made everything fresh. Winter lawns fooled into a smirk of green. I wanted to write about Winslow Homer's sea watercolors, the colors of the sea, but so far I've obviously failed. If I were to workshop this poem, X would point that out. Y would recommend more images. Perhaps recalling the last trip to Florida, the dark walnut, the muted red walls that August, walking the downward corridor to the carpet woven of black and garnet. There is a man there who wants to sell me a casket. This is the plum sofa at the desk, an ancient ruby-colored Esther book, where the 4 red corridors cross there at the bottom. Or perhaps in Illinois, how she lay back in the apple orchard under the fruit, under September, and offered herself in the dying grasses under the drone of hornets, showing me first the full color of what she was. And so too will recall running in the night through a grove of coconut trees, running with other boys, playing capture the flag back and forth in the warm night, the salt breeze up from Biscayne Bay, how dappled in the dark our bodies. And Z would say it was perfect and give me one of the long, significant looks. This is kind of a rant on the death of a friend. High Plateau. Sarah, dead somewhere, and the damn letter is 4 minutes late, then 22. A few words, boys, dogs, the heavy breathing there in the dark, the implied whisper, each cliche spun from gold. Sarah's dead somewhere, Yakima, some burnt white toast to wrangle, no obit or pan in the Times. I do harbor darkly. I am, hello again, more discreet, whispering in the dark, still the brightening, the beginning there and the coupling of others, the dead, our parents, the mill workers who wrought what small instruments, devices and metronomes they could to forestall death. Hello, says Sarah in the slow telephone. Those who would scorch and abrade each recollection, souvenir and crumb, to mark the entrance. This won't be easy, chum. You see, you have to reach out and feel. I hope you don't mind me calling a spade a spade. Her rich rump thumped each dream, each foray, each tacit wallow whispered, I am returned to the dark, the velvet disarray, the sign of nausea coming from the morning's first gray beams. Return to the perception of Sarah there in the banished lowlands, Sarah in neon, a recollection of the wind of the twists, all the gallow wine wrought to mold our distemper, such torpor, indolence, bitch honey, the boyfriend, the knuckles, Sarah is dead somewhere. The hone and babble of coalescence, mold and evolve, what makes a man is everything. Death, that great mishap, became the salient from which we take the sight and set the tiller. Sarah coughs. She says from the white-painted bed, only the tickle of gin going down. Beyond the brilliant window, I told her there are towers and domes, and with squinches and whole civilizations, born before Yakima was etherized to her. I was garrulous and in love. You can't miss it, I said. The gate is always open. This one's called More Geography. The price of fire is going up, but the man in the toll booth will still cut your silhouette in black paper for a few euros. And yes, I knew them all. The woman with the crooked walk loping up the street, the near miss at the rural airport, nights thinking about rowing out into the lake, easy, that is to say, thinking. The daft placement of the hand is a matter of consciousness, remembering the gestation period of memory, the news again of the riots in France. This can continue until late in the day. Gorgeous and sensuous are lumped up against each other, beasts exhausted from the rut, privy to the small bleedings. The barber is closed today, hardly fretful news on the face of it. The rest of them I've never met, and probably won't. We breed too fast for a race so clumsy with the truth. The rib shack down the road is boarded up and up for sale. The price of fire is going up, and what with the sinister sound of continuing breakage, the windows rattling in the wind. The filament of our garments is cooling, each intricate loss like a cotton dress, a go-to-church dress, its hem appliqued with hand lacework, showing on the bodice a dainty tea stain in the shape of an unknown Asian country, the color of honey. Thank you.
Before introducing Toni, I want to say one other thing. You Eugene poets have really ignited this whole fault lines thing.
Yeah.
Because nobody really knew what to do in the other states. In San Francisco, they were spread out everywhere. When Toni decided that, or agreed to be the volunteer coordinator, someone hosted a dinner at their home, and the poets in the book met and planned this reading. And Charles, thank you so much. This is just a gorgeous bookstore. It's God bless the independent bookstore. And so all of you Eugene poets came together and figured out how to do this reading, and Sam designed a gorgeous, gorgeous poster. And you emailed me, giving me notes. I went ahead and sent your emails to the Seattle poets, the San Francisco poets, and the Portland poets. And the Seattle poets answered back. The president of the Washington Poets Association, Angel Lauderell, wrote back and said, "We are not a cohesive group in Washington. We don't socialize, we do our own thing, we don't know each other." And after they saw what the Eugene poets were doing and how community-oriented you were, it lifted them up. And now I'm getting these emails from the San Francisco group, from the Seattle group, saying for the first time in years, we are coming together as a group of poets. We're starting to go to each other's homes, we're reading together, we're meeting each other, and this is turning out to be a real community builder. So thank you to Eugene. It all started here. And our Toni, I like her name, by the way. Toni's work has appeared in Yellow Medicine Review, Margie, and many other publications. She has 2 books forthcoming in 2012 and is a member of the Red Sofa Poets and Madrona Writers.
Wow, here we are again. It is a great community. Very happy to be part of it. I write, what is that called when you write about art? I can't remember the name of it, but I do that, whatever that's called. There's, ekphrastic, yeah. Anyway, this is written about a painting I saw up at Centrum Writers Conference in the Centrum office. It was very, very weird. And it's a lithograph called Odalisque by Joanne Albers. After Odalisque, I want to stop writing poems that begin "My Mother." I want to write about lizards reclining on divans as if they were divas, as if they were courtesans. This one, with the window behind her green leg stretched out, window with a tiny sailboat beyond the curtains, her thigh bulging and long, a frog's leg popping in a skillet. A crow stands imperturbable on her green-yellow hip. You are thinking this is a poem about a mother. You are thinking this is a poem about Manet's Olympia. But you are wrong. Carl, the coffee will get made when it will. We have as much time as anyone else. Everyone is equal on this tilt-a-whirl. This is a poem about sex, like any other. Only there is a lizard languished on this divan. The divan is covered in gold brocade like any other. There is a window in the background, a blue sea like any Sunday, a sailboat. But above the coffee maker, languid as a sleeping alley cat in a black and white movie about Corsica or Crete, a lizard reclines on a divan posed for the painting, a nude, scaly feet and claws, long folded fish belly neck, a shock of cold blood, limbic hooded head lizard. You get up from your red velvet tub chair to convince yourself of what you're seeing. Lizard. This is a terrible error. Where is the mother, the fallen breast, the belly? I am not writing a poem about my mother now, no siree. We just got back from Europe. We spent some time in Amsterdam, and it was really a hard trip because, as some of you know, I was aware that my sister would probably not survive until we returned. And she had always wanted to ride an elephant, and she indeed got to do that while she was still alive. 20 Herenstraat, Amsterdam. After Debbie leaves for Madame Tussauds, locking the inner door, then the outer, remembering her umbrella, after clean towels from Vlad next door, and the taxi ordered for Sunday morning, after the pharmacy, a third tube of the good medicine you can't buy in the States, The skinny Dutch house is utterly silent, but for the tapping of your fingers making your new poem, and the blackbird who has flown off after his small brown bride. We hear the absence of his arias, his recitatives, his Mississippi Delta down and dirty blues. In the emailed photo, the elephant raises her trunk, my sister astride, her face radiant. What can I say about this moment? The elephant's name, she tells me, is Angela. And last, this is kind of a love poem, I guess. Poetry. The UPS man drops a box on the porch. We tear off the satin wrapper. So many gold threads running through the weave. We both married other people in February, early in the 70s. Our fathers laughing, cigarette smoke haloing around their heads. Poetry breeds and molts all over the house, wicker baskets beside the fireplace. You first laid eyes on me, I was reading poetry. We roll around in it like puppies. At night we ride teams of matched verbs up and down the stairs. We are surreal. We look for words that rhyme with orange. Thank you.
And Ruthy Kanaggy. Ruthy is a poet, writer, and bicycle travel consultant. She is the author of Living Abroad in Japan and translator of Park Bench, A Children's Story.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be in Eugene where there's a feeling of community among poets and bicyclists as well. My first poem is called The House Was Empty. The house was empty that first night after we crossed the northern tier in a Plymouth Voyager stuffed with a cat, a Christmas tree, an 8 and a 12-year-old, listening to Walkmans with their feet up in the air, watching movies on the Sony video player through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. After we opened our gifts in a motel room in Wyoming and ate cheese crackers and Doritos in a gas station because no restaurant was open on Christmas Day. After we chased the wagon trails through Idaho to Ontario, Oregon, past the Strawberry Mountains, Painted Hills, Ochoco Forest, the Three Sisters, and over Santiam Pass, and landed in Eugene. With no moving truck in sight, we simply spread our bodies in a parallelogram across the orange shag, wall-to-wall carpet of the living room and began our new life. The next one is about fawn lilies. I had never heard of or seen or encountered a fawn lily until I moved to Oregon. It's my absolute favorite wildflower. It's magical. And it's called Before the Fawn Lilies Moved Into My Yard. Before the fawn lilies moved into my yard, I used to drive up to Mary's Peak in May to see the glacier lilies dancing in the subalpine meadow and counted the white-tipped cascades from Mount Hood to Mount Thielman. Perhaps a distant cousin to the purple katakuri I used to encounter hiking the hills north of Tokyo. Purple petals pointing skyward above mottled green leaves. One spring day, the fawn lilies arrived unbidden, dappled leaves pushing through fall's crumpled oak, sprouting slender stems above which white petals pirouette, suspending lemon drop clusters. Unannounced relatives, they grow bolder every year. The last one is the poem that's in the journal, Fault Lines. And I was startled actually to hear from Toni today that it's already been it's already been read publicly 3 times before I even got a chance to read it publicly. Anyway, I'm happy to know that it's meaningful to people. There's one Japanese word in this poem, kotatsu, and that is a low table with a heating element underneath that is kind of the center of family life in the winter in Japan. 1 year after. She has his album of childhood photos. I have our slides of backpacking in Asia. She has the blue plates we brought back from Hong Kong. I have the tea set we bought in Japan. She has the coffee table he built from a fruit box. I have the kotatsu hearth he built for our family. She has the green suede jacket I gave him for his birthday. I have the silver heart and pearl he gave me on mine. She had his last 4 years. I had his years of smitten innocence. She had his last kiss. I had his first. She planned his memorial service. I planned our wedding. She has his beige house. I have our vibrant daughters. She has his ashes. I have his grandson in my arms.
And our next poet and reader is Joy McDowell. Joy is a University of Oregon grad and writes from studios in the Willamette Valley and along the southern Oregon coast. Her work is included in New Poets of the West and Anthology.
I just thank the heavens that there was a publisher like Toni out there that wasn't afraid of some of my poetry. Those of you who know me know sometimes I come on pretty strong. And one of the poems I submitted to him was called Hell House. On the basis of expediency, they attached the easy-to-inflate lawn chair to the vacuum cleaner, while a nobody serial killer from Omaha, who has appointed himself everyone's conscience, uses a broom handle to mimic his widowed aunt's canary. A fellow in the back row suggests the pledge class invite Madoff to join in, but Rasputin, who currently works in risk analysis, flicks a fundamentalist flea and disagrees. That man is a trichinosis pig. Another Russian with blue eyebrows shouts, "Sit down," Her Majesty commands. "We do our own background checks in this district. And don't ask that butcher from the Congo. He types really slow with his last finger. Get the goon from the swamp, that rip-off artist who painted the Pope in his underwear. Yeah, him. Get that guy on the job, and can someone please turn down the volume? My elbows are aching. Cocktails at the Coliseum, everyone. Bring your own piss and vinegar. We have plenty of blood. Rogue lions with tits? Sure. Bring them along. We're pulling even with those alpha flesh eaters from Wall Street House. If we nab Caligula and at least one big-name child molester, well, I don't need to tell you whose ass we'll be stomping. Yowza, guess whose name just flew over the cuckoo transom? Manson. Yay. Hey, ho, Hell House. And when we talk about community, I always feel like poetry is a team. And I'm helped by the team, I'm supported by the team, and I belong to several teams. I'm part of Red Sofa team, I'm part of the Oregon Poets, and now I am part of the Fault Line Poets. And so whatever I can do, I hope it reflects well upon them. This last week on Solstice, I was just notified that 2 of my poems finished a first and a second place in the National Federation of Poet Society's 2012 contest, which is kind of a big deal. And I was anxious to tell Toni because all the people who helped me and support me during the rejection letters, you get a little bit of the credit when it comes through for all of us. The first poem placed second in the number 4 category called Glass. It's called Glass Traders, and it was sponsored by someone out of Texas. Glass Traders. You'd think he could get it right being on his 66th rotation of the sun. But no, he still has drafty castles, helicopters buzzing, a bipolar karma which is scaring the bejesus out of him. So he slathers on sunscreen and sets sail on a frozen ocean while hearing hospital gongs and swearing. He could see cryptic messages among seeds of dragon fruit by bending his fingers backward at the wrist. A bead of sweat on his upper lip, pain in his right leg. All ricochet his thoughts into a park, swings blowing in the wind. The shore afloat on its tidal lungs. He eats cabbage stew with the Glass Traders and takes another sweltering hike, collecting carnival refuse as he skirts the perimeter. It will be here that he launches the rocket ride, here that he tries once more. He knows he will fail, but that's critical to reincarnation, the never getting it right first step. And both Hell House and Glass Traders came from my collection called Ransom Note Poems, which refers to the mechanics of how I put them together, like I was writing a ransom note where you paste little words in. Try to get the gist of your message across. And the other poem that placed in the national category, and this was the first place, from the state of New Mexico, which was on our American Indian heritage. And this poem is called Red Bliss. And as I was telling Nancy Moody, I think this poem belongs to another woman who just used me as a faucet. Red Bliss. She prods night coals into color as a scarlet-mouthed dawn opens. Riders come, ghost without honor or wives, worse than wolf or raven. Their tooth-edged swords flash cold silver, not hot silver of salmon or jigging white silver off tumbling water. Many guns. She takes a wide taste of her place, her fire, her man. Nothing escapes her hungry eye. She must pack and tie down enough for her last journey. Woven into her basket of red bliss, fish, venison, smooth flesh wrapped in smoke. The cure, long winter. Strewn across a war-paint sky, her story, forward and back. She, hands crossing, singing in her head, this is drum, arrow, a buffalo without eyes. Beyond her last mountain, white tent, tall tent, long leg from sky. A tent of no one, empty now, her babies robbed of horse, fire, blanket, and creek. If she knew of Asia, she would sing golden phrases, release her sparrows for the sun. Flames wrap over her heart, swallow her end. A white hawk whistles a fresh song. She follows her new companion, leaves her tongue with dust, her hair untied, her hollow bird feet dance step in feather moccasins laced with warm air. Her knowing swells like her sorrow, regret for her killers, headless soldiers, outcast without totems, or a sky tribe.
Our next poet and reader is Rick McMonagle from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where my wife is from. I was just talking briefly to Rick when I got here, and you don't speak Pittsburghese.
I can.
Okay, well, then let's do that. You just want to hear him do it?
First I gotta read off the room.
That was my line. Well, let's root around and figure that out. Rick was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and his new chapbook is
Spencer Butte Meditation.
Spencer Butte Meditations. Was published by Mountains and Rivers Press.
He accepted my poem before he knew I was from Pittsburgh. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to read three things. The first is the only poem I have in Fault Lines, and this is an event that really happened. My daughter Alita, who's here, really did text me on the morning of the tsunami, and so I wrote this poem, and it's for her, my first tsunami for Alita. Awoke on the west coast, bedside, cell phone shaking, 2,000 miles away, my daughter texting me at 6 a.m., beware, Dad, of my first tsunami. How far love travels, vibrations and all, kaboom, kaboom. Crashes on the eastern shore of the Ring of Fire, dead Johnny Cash has that much power. When iron birds fly in the sky and the iron horse marches across the land, the Buddha will be in the land of the red man, that's us. Tearful for our Tokyo teams, storms surged, knocked off the bases. We are grains of rice thrown here and there. A new funeral arrangement in Placid, Oregon. Waves lose their karma. Energies bounce whales, seals, lions, and tiger sharks alike. Oh my. Three different poems. This next one is from my book called Moorish Journals, which came from a journal that I wrote in every day in a Mediterranean trip. And it's for my oldest daughter, Olivia, who may not be here, but that's okay. She may be in Italy next year, and that's why I brought this poem from my trip in Italy. And it's a train trip from Brindisi, which is in southeastern Italy, to Rome. 6 a.m., we weren't called by the hotel man. Train leaves in 20 minutes. Rush heavy packs to station. On sidewalk, a torn newspaper photo of a train wreck hits my embryonic eyes. Easter Monday, ticket line too crowded, decide to buy on board. Train jammed, sit in first class hallway, $56 to sit on packs. Meet a medical student from New Jersey who I thought was Italian via linen suit and headphones. He feeds us breaded artichokes, oranges, apples, and almond biscuits. His aunt provided for the trip. His uncle made it, an elevator, 2 Mercedes in the driveway. Through the compartment glass, I watch a light-haired woman cry as she loses her hometown down the railroad ladder. Mona Lisa breastpin presses tight against cool window, fresh morning air, poppies, olive trees, trellis grapes, a collie, her bouncy red peasant dress. I want to comfort her, but I know it would only lead to sex. The student encourages me to contact Mary Silvestri's brother, the rich doctor at the American Hospital in Rome, tells me to sponge off anybody you can, and you know how all Italians love to take care of even distant relatives. And the last one is a poem written for a dear friend that was killed in a horrible car accident. And So it's a posthumous letter written in verse. And I've lived with this poem for about 8 years now, and it seems to have all the elements, or a lot of the elements that poets have been dealing with for millennium. Love, death, family, friends, tragedy, chickens, cheese, Wisconsin, beer, St. Patty's Day. Dear Pam, did you ever see a chicken slip on the ice? Geisha, the hen who always flies the fence, the other morning her left leg gives out as she hit a patch of glaze next to the orange tractor. In all my life, I never saw this. Did you know there is a word for divination by means of cheese? It's tyromancy. And I found it in the OED looking for something else. Did they teach that fact in your Wisconsin history class in Beloit Elementary? Or is that an unnatural mix of church and state? The other day, little Alita said, "Mom, Dad, I would die for you." A jolt hit us and we said, "Please, honey, don't. It's much better for the parents to go first." Did you hear about the kitty black and tans I made for little Nora? Of course you did. You live next door. It was St. Patty's Day and I was making the adult version, a first for Connie and Vicky. And it hit me to mix Cool Whip and Coke. First the brown, then a dollop of the white stuff. Nora's huge eyes bloomed, and with the first sip, she sprouted a white mustache of froth. Oh, Pam, I see you cracking up, doubling over one of Nora's many cute quips. Like this afternoon, I'm in the mood for a black and tan, Rick. I know your dark curls and her golden ones are a black and tan made in heaven. Thank you very much.
After the next read, we will take a small 5-minute break or so, a little stretch break, and this and that and Charles, and then we'll resume with the remainder of the program. Our next poet and reader is Sharon Munson, who's probably, I hope, over for jet lag. Sharon is widely published in anthologies and journals. Her chapbook, Stillness Settles Down the Lane, was published in 2010 by Utter Chaos Press. Her new full-length book, That Certain Blue, was published in 2011 by Blue Light Press. Sharon Munson.
The first thing I was going to do when I arrived today was hunt up Tony, tell him thank you for the evening, thank you for publishing the 2 poems, and we walked in together and looked at each other and said in unison, "Who are you?" Thank you, Tony. I'm going to begin with romance. Chance. They meet rushing for a cab, embroiled in afternoon traffic, sprinting from opposite sides. "We'll share," he declares, barely breaking his cadence. She acquiesces, sliding in, smoothing the skirt of her best dress. Arms moving slowly, her soft summer tan like dustings of shimmer. And yes, she's wearing blue, but more of a periwinkle, pale tint of indigo. The rustle of her movement, a whisper like a sigh, swish, swish. She leans forward, the nape of her neck imparting a scent of crushed roses.
informs the driver of her destination. Her voice melodious, with a hint of soft consonants. She plays with a thin strand of gold around her narrow wrist, sliding the bracelet from cuff to elbow, not nervously at all, but one of those habits a person acquires unaware. A slight breeze floats through open windows, like a faint beat of a butterfly's wing. Of course, she is beautiful. The second poem that was published in Fault Lines is about death and life. Let me start with a few words on fortunes. The poem is called Providence. Fortunes lift spirits with promises of great success, love and harmony, fame and good fortune. And this is from the Chinese Historical Project. I stay with her until the end, until the mortician arrives. In a cloud of sorrow, I drive across town, startled at how life still goes on. Afternoon traffic, February drizzle, people crossing streets, putting up umbrellas, a sheriff's car giving chase. Back home, I call my sisters, the funeral director, the airline to make arrangements to fly her back. You have to eat, my husband says as the sky darkens. He reaches for my windbreaker, takes out his keys. In the Jade Palace, we nibble sweet with sour, vegetables stir-fried, plain white rice. I sip hot oolong tea, crack open a fortune cookie. You have handled your responsibilities competently with love. Arrived in the mail this week from the journal Drash Northwest Mosaic. And this is for all of the women, you know, I'm so short, it's easier. This is for all of the women in the audience, and my apologies to all the men. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, maybe I better. But, okay. Unbound, but for the Sabbath shawl. On Mother's 90th birthday, I suggest she ditch a lifetime of support undergarments. Straps that pinch, rub, hinder, leaving painful red grooves on shoulder, waist, and thigh. I encourage her to discard bras, girdles, garter belts, hose, shed all bone and underwire. I reason that at a certain age, it's time to give up cramped and constricted. She no longer needs to fasten, snap, squeeze, jam, push up. No button short of the hole. No hook to catch or snag. Oh my, she replies, and with an open mind, shrugs away a lifetime of tight and dense for soft, breathable, poor, prima cotton undershirts, soft anklets, silky undies, leaving her supple, unbound, and free.